Hey guys, for those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Jenny, and the handsome man holding the camera is my husband, David. For the last 6 months or so, 4 of those months have been spent visiting family. And while visiting family, we've spent quite a bit of time inside, hanging out with them and enjoying the comforts of living in a house. And it got us thinking, do we kind of miss living in a house? We've been on the road as full-time RVers for just over 2.5 years now. And if I'm being completely honest, there are a couple things that I miss about having a house. One of them being I miss having a big, comfortable couch. Our RV doesn't have a couch, and I know that some RVs come with them, but for the most part, I don't think they're quite as comfortable as, let's say, the giant sectional we had in our house before we moved out. That was the most comfortable couch I've ever sat on. It was flex steel. It had like 7 different sections. I think we could have like 10 people sitting on it. It was just this big, massive couch. So super comfortable, and it leaned back really far. And the only seating besides on top of our bed that we have in our RV right now are just reclining office chairs. Now we did get like squishy, comfortable ones, so they are very comfortable to sit in, but it's nothing compared to having a nice big couch. Another thing I really miss about living in a house is unlimited water. Now, we boondock almost exclusively. We're currently boondocking now, mostly because even though we're staying in a state park, all of their water is shut off, so we don't have water hookups. So, we don't have unlimited water right now, just like we normally don't. And one thing that goes along with having unlimited water in a house is normally you have a big, massive water heater, so you can take nice, long, hot showers or a nice hot bubble bath, and you can't do that in our little trailer. Our water heater in our trailer is only 6 gallons, and even if it was bigger, we can't take longer showers than that because we have a very limited amount of fresh water we can use for our showers. So having unlimited water would be really, really nice in a trailer, but it's just not something we can do while boondocking and traveling constantly. I also really miss having reliable and unlimited internet access. When we lived in a house, we had really fast cable internet and we loved it. Now that we're on the road boondocking full time, we have to rely on the cellular network, and we have Verizon. So we have 2 hotspots from Verizon, and we can also use our phones as hotspots. Now, they all use the cellular network, which isn't as fast as, say, an internet connection in a house. So not only is it not as fast, but because we stay in national forests and out on BLM land all the time, we might not actually have cellular signal. Now, we do have a cell booster in our trailer, and it works really well, but it can't boost nothing. Something we really miss, especially because we run our YouTube channel, we have to upload videos, we run our entire business, our blog post, and we also love to play video games. All of that and having spotty internet can be really frustrating. Another thing I really miss about living in a house is having a washing machine, a dryer, and a dishwasher. David and I split our chores very evenly, so I'm in charge of washing the dishes and washing all of our clothes. Now, in our little trailer, because we chose a small trailer in order to boondock, which is how we love to stay. We don't like staying in RV parks, so we could get a bigger trailer, stay in RV parks, have unlimited water, all that good stuff, but we don't like staying that way. We have to hand wash everything. Not only do I have to hand wash the dishes, but I also have to hand wash all of our clothes. Sure, I can take all of our clothes into town, and I can pay money at a laundromat and get all my clothes cleaned that way, sit there and wait for it to all be done, but I don't like doing that either. I would much rather stay wherever we're at and hand wash our clothes, hand wash our dishes. We don't have unlimited water, so even if we did have a washer-dryer combo and a larger trailer that say we could take out boondocking, we would still have to ration our water and still wouldn't use our washer-dryer or our dishwasher. And the thing I miss the most about living in a house is food storage. In the house we lived in before we hit the road, we had this big, tall refrigerator, freezer combo. I had this big walk-in pantry, and I had more cabinets in my kitchen than I could even fill. It was fantastic, but in this tiny little thing, I have just this small 1-cabinet pantry. It is kind of deep, so it does store a decent amount of food, but nothing compared to a walk-in pantry. And then we have an 8 cubic foot tiny little refrigerator with just this tiny little freezer. So that means that even though I really wish that every time we went grocery shopping, I could shop for the full 2 weeks we plan on staying anywhere, it doesn't normally happen. A lot of times we have to drive into town and stock up on things that we've gone through, like bread and milk.
Now for the things that I miss about living in a house. And the first thing is reliable appliances. The appliances that are put into RVs are garbage. The furnace, the air conditioner, the fridge, the water heater, all these things are just the cheapest things that they could possibly find to put into a trailer or an RV. And honestly, the main reason is that they're not meant to be lived in like we are, so I kind of understand that, but we've already had our fridge fail and our furnace is starting to act up too, and our trailer is only 2 years old. Whereas in a home, your water heater and your fridge and all the appliances that are in there are good quality, if you get the right brands, and they can last 10 years. You're not going to get 10 years out of your RV appliances though, and I'm the one that gets to fix them when they fail. Another thing I really miss is a large living space, especially with what we had in our house that we sold just before hitting the road. It had an open floor plan, and I used to wrestle and run around and just have all sorts of fun with our dog Sweetie in our big living room, which I just can't do in our trailer. We can't wrestle the way we used to. She's a big Rottweiler, so she needs a lot of room. And I guess we could get a RV that had slide outs or that was just bigger in general, but like Jenny said before, having a larger rig would make us less flexible in the boondocking sites that we can potentially stay out in the national forest, and for us that's just worth more than more space. But man, do I miss having that large living room. Another thing I really miss is having a clean outdoor workspace like a garage or a shed or some sort of outbuilding to do maintenance on, things like our RV and our truck. I wait to do truck maintenance such as oil changes, transmission fluid flushes, brake jobs, stuff like that I do myself for when we're visiting family so that I can do it in their garage or on their driveway, because I just don't want to do stuff like that when we're staying in a dirt or a gravel campsite. And I just really miss also having like a workbench. My workbench right now is just the tailgate of our truck that I just pull down, and I've got my tools laid out on the workbench and the tailgate and whatever I'm working on. And it gets the job done sort of, but I just really miss having a garage and a workbench. And the thing that I miss the most about living in a house is a nice big king-size bed, which we had in our house before hitting the road. Now we have an RV short queen, and it just doesn't really get the job done because Jenny splays out when she sleeps, and I'm a flailer. Like I'll just, toss and turn like crazy in the middle of the night, and our cats sleep with us too, and Sweetie even likes to hop up and lay down in the bed too. So just imagine 2 adults, 2 cats, and a full-grown Rottweiler all sleeping in an RV short queen. It's very uncomfortable, and we wake up in the night so often because we gotta shoo the cats off, or Jenny's got a leg on my side, or I've bumped into her in the middle of the night, and I guess it's not as bad as I'm making it sound, but it is still annoying when you wake up in the middle of the night to stuff like this, when with a king-size bed, we would have plenty of room, and none of that used to happen. I'd just sleep through the night, and I would never get bumped, or the cats had plenty of room to sleep, and even Sweetie could sleep at the foot of the bed, and everything was fine.
We decided to come inside for the rest of this video because I'm sure, as you can imagine, seeing all the snow behind us, it's really cold where we are. We are staying in Sugar Pine Point State Park off of Lake Tahoe in California. We're at about 6,000 feet elevation, so as you can imagine, in January, it's actually really cold here. We talked about the things that we miss living in a house, but now we want to talk to you guys about the things we really don't miss about living in a house. And one thing I really don't miss about living in a house is having more surfaces and more rooms to clean. Not only floor surface and countertop surface, but everything. Not only in our house did we have 2 full bathrooms, so those were 2 showers, 2 sinks, 2 toilets that I had to clean all the time, and now we don't have that, so there's a lot less indoor cleaning to do. We do have to do indoor cleaning more often because we have a small space and we have all our animals in here, so we have to sweep a lot, we wipe the counters off a lot, but it still beats having to clean an entire big house all the time. David and I can clean the entire inside of our RV in about 10 or 15 minutes now. Something else I really don't miss is just having stuff and clutter. For example, in our house, I think we had 20 coffee mugs, and now we have 2. Not only do we not have the room in here for 20 coffee mugs, but we didn't even use 20 coffee mugs when we lived in a house, but we owned them for some reason. And we also had, I don't know, decorations and just stuff. We had walk-in closets that we didn't even wear half the stuff in it. And yeah, having a house and having more space meant that we had more space to fill. Whereas in our little trailer, we have all of the space filled already with mostly things that we need. We have just a little bit of space for things that we don't need, and all of that space is already filled up. So whenever we go shopping somewhere and we see something that we like that maybe if we had lived in a house we probably would have gotten, now our response to ourselves is, we don't have room for this, so obviously we're not going to get it. That also saves us money because we don't buy all this stuff that we don't need. Another thing I really don't miss about living in a house is being forced to be stationary and stay where we are no matter the weather. For example, we lived in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and right now I'm pretty sure the temperatures are really low because it's really cold in January there. And sure, we're staying where it's cold right now, but this is only a stopover point. Tomorrow we're leaving to warmer weather, and living in an RV full-time really gives us that flexibility. If there's a big storm rolling in, or if there's cold weather rolling in, we can just pack up and go where there isn't a storm, or where there isn't cold weather. And that's really nice because I hate the cold, so I always prefer to be where it's warm. So we get to travel around with the weather, and it's fantastic. Another thing I don't miss about living in a house is the lack of urge to explore. I know earlier I mentioned that I really miss having a nice big comfortable couch, but honestly, a big comfortable couch contributed to me wanting to sit on it all the time and not want to go outside. It's almost as if our house was too comfortable. Whereas now, even though these chairs are comfortable and we do enjoy sitting in them, it's really nice being in these nature areas. We want to be outside and explore, not just the cool things to do in an area, but our campsites as well. They're almost always really cool and interesting places to walk around in or hike around in. We'll take Sweetie on walks all the time, and that's just not something we even had an urge to do in our house. We would take the dog on a walk around the neighborhood and stuff, but there weren't many outdoor activities that we had an urge to do, whereas here, because we're in the middle of nature, we want to be out in nature more. And going along with a more sedentary lifestyle like we used to live when we lived in our house, we would eat a lot more unhealthy things. We would have pasta all the time. We would have frozen pizza all the time. And now, because we live a more healthy and active lifestyle, going out hiking and exploring, we're a lot more health conscious. Not only do we typically stay pretty far away from a town, which means we don't want to drive into town to go out to eat, we actually cook our own food all the time. So we're picking vegetables, and we've almost cut pasta completely out of our diet. Sometimes we have frozen pizza, but it's very rare because our stove always burns it, so we don't typically crave it all that much. Even since hitting the road, I have lost 20 pounds just from eating healthy and exercising. And I have really grown to love cooking our own food. It's very fulfilling. So that's one thing I don't miss about living in a house, is eating unhealthy. And the thing that I really don't miss about living in a house is having neighbors. When we were staying with friends and family, we got the taste of having neighbors again. One of their neighbors has a dog that they let out every morning, sometimes as early as 4 a.m., and he barks non-stop. And when we lived in our neighborhood, in our house, we had neighbors that had dogs that they would keep outside all the time, and they would bark all the time. And now that we can go wherever we want and stay wherever we want, we don't typically have neighbors. Sometimes when we're staying in a more popular area, we'll have a neighbor as close as a quarter mile or an eighth mile away, but not right next door. And we love that. We really cherish our alone time and our solitude. It really helps us enjoy nature more, and it really helps us soak in the beauty around us. It's really nice not having neighbors now, and I really, really don't miss it.
Now, the first thing that I don't miss about having a house is lawn maintenance. Now, I'm not Hank Hill. I don't like driving around on a rider lawnmower and being real particular, and I just love taking care of my lawn. No, I was the exact opposite. I hated mowing the lawn, and I hated taking care of it. And not only that, but even in the winter when I didn't have to do lawn maintenance anymore, living in Indiana, we had to deal with snow. And I also hated shoveling the driveway and making sure it wasn't icy so that our cars could still get up it. So, not having to deal with lawn maintenance and not having to deal with shoveling snow, oh yeah, I'm all for it. Another thing I don't miss that Jenny already touched on, but I'm gonna add to, is the stationary lifestyle. When we lived in our house, we got into a routine where we did the same things every day and we saw the same things every day. But now that our house has wheels, we travel America, we get to see everything that this incredible, beautiful country of ours has to offer. Whereas before, when we lived in our house, we only had about 1 or 2 weeks of vacation time. So we would only actually go on like one vacation a year. And we just didn't get to see enough. Even as full-time RVers, we've just barely scratched the surface of all of the incredible things that America has to offer. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. The next thing I don't miss about living in a house is the cost. Without question, living in a house costs more than full-time RVing if you're doing it right. And like us, we boondock in the National Forest and BLM land, so site fees are zero for us. We don't have property taxes anymore, and just maintaining a home in general costs more than maintaining an RV. Our home costs us $130,000. Our trailer only costs us $14,000. So we could buy 10 of these trailers with the cost or with the money that it took to just buy a single home. And then on top of that, in the house, you've got utility bills, gas, electric, and water and sewer that we just don't have in our trailer. So we save a lot of money as full-time RVers. Living in the suburbs is another thing that I do not miss. Now, I'm not going to rag on the suburbs too bad, but it's just that they cannot compete, in my opinion, to living in the forest. Like right now, we are in the middle of the forest, and when we're boondocking in the national forest, we're even further out, like way out, and we're actually like in nature. We live in nature, surrounded by it. And that, to me, it just can't get any better. Like that's why we originally hit the road on the first place. We wanted to surround ourselves in the untouched beauty of the national forests. Whereas, living in the suburbs, it was just the exact opposite of that. And, there are city people and there are not city people, and we're just not city people. Being connected to the power grid is another thing that I don't miss. Sure, I don't miss receiving that utility bill every month, but more so than that is I love knowing that the power we're producing doesn't come from burning fossil fuels like coal. Instead, it is coming from our solar panels up on the roof of our trailer, so we know that it is 100% sustainable energy. But even more than that is there's just some sort of like an intangible awesomeness that comes from creating your own energy. You're not reliant on anyone else for the power that you need to live. Like right now, these lights that are on the electricity is being produced from our solar panels. So, we are making our own energy, and that is just really, really cool. And what I love the most about switching our lives from living in a house to being full-time RVers is that we value experiences over belongings. The typical person defines success as having the new truck, a big house, a pool in the backyard, a boat, and all these big, new, shiny things. And honestly, when Jenny and I first met, that's what we thought happiness was too. But it's just not true. Getting this new, expensive thing will give you that initial burst of excitement, but over time, it's going to make you less and less happy until you just don't really care about it anymore, and then you want the next new thing. And that's just not the key to happiness. Being a full-time RVer and living in a small space like this, this is only about 200 square feet, sort of forces you to become a minimalist. And as you live as a minimalist longer and longer, you kind of realize that you can be just as happy with less as you were back when you had more, sometimes even more happy. I know Jenny and I are more happy than we were, and it's just because you're less financially burdened, when you're always wanting that next new thing, like a new truck that you finance, a big house that you get a big mortgage for, a boat that you probably also finance. Now you're in so much debt, and buying all this stuff, putting them on credit cards, that debt really weighs on you and is a source of stress, where right now Jenny and I are completely debt free, and we've been debt free for over 3 years now, and it's just such a ease, it gives you peace of mind, and we now truly value experiences over those belongings. The memories that Jenny and I have made together exploring, all these national parks and national forests are just incredible. They're worth so much more to me than a big house or a new truck. I'm not trying to be cheesy or anything, but they truly are priceless. Now, this all boils down to the big question of, do we miss living in a house?
I'd have to say the answer is no. Sure, we miss the small conveniences of living in a house, like having a washer dryer so that I don't have to hand wash our clothes, and having essentially unlimited hot water, but those are purely conveniences, and that just can't compare to the freedom and happiness that being a full-time RVer and being able to travel wherever we want, whenever we want, it just doesn't compare. And it kind of seems like a sacrifice in a way, not having those minor conveniences, but it's so worth it for us.
As full-time RVers living in this small trailer for the past 2.5 years, it has really shown us how little space you need to still be happy. Before we hit the road, we thought that we needed like a 2,000 square foot house or bigger for us two and maybe 2 potential future children. But now we know that that is just way too much space. It's absurd. We could be just as happy in a 1,000 square foot house, with 4 people living in that. And that's great because smaller houses are cheaper. They're cheaper up front and in the long run, and they're easier to maintain.
Yeah, and the last 6 months staying with family for all that time we have has really shown us that we really don't want to live in a house right now, especially, and we love our little trailer.
Yeah, believe me, less is more. But we're super hungry now, so we're gonna cook some dinner and call it a night. We'll catch you guys later.
Bye.